Hey, welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel. Thanks for joining us. It's been a long time since we've done a reading, and there's been videos in the past where I took some people that I really respect, different articles, pieces of literature, and read here on the channel. Sort of like books on tape. So if you're driving, if you've got this saved, you can kind of listen to it on your drive to and from work or wherever you're going. If you have a long and boring road trip coming up because of the Thanksgiving holiday, if you're here in America, well, here you go. This will get you to your destination, and you can generate some interesting dinner conversation based on what we talk about here. This comes to us from Professor Antal Fekete. Some people pronounce it Fekete, a Hungarian economist that I have a lot of respect for, and I've read for the last well over a decade. He comes from the New Austrian School of Economics. The title of today's article: Timing Hyperinflation, the saga of unraveling global fiat money issued on the strength of irredeemable promises of governments. A little background on Mr. Fekete. He experienced firsthand hyperinflation during the collapse of Eastern Europe in the World War II era, of which we've discussed the many hyperinflationary environments that occurred in that region following World War II. Synopsis: the consensus pushed by mainstream economists, almost all of whom are staunch supporters of global fiat money based, as it is, on irredeemable promises of governments, is that the problem of inflation has been disposed of through successful government measures such as QE, quantitative easing, ZIRP, zero interest policy, blowing bubbles in the bond, stock, and real estate markets. Governments have also succeeded in their war on gold. The precious yellow has been marginalized. Gold has been put where it belongs, in the doghouse. Thus, inflation is no longer a threat, thanks to wise government monetary policy in manipulating the rate of interest. This treatise aims at exploding the myth of government omnipotence by focusing on the weak point of mainstream economics, i.e., Keynesianism, namely the denigration of capital and dismissing the problem of capital destruction. However, all that these wise government policies have accomplished was to let the capital structure of the world enter an advanced state of decay. We are witnessing the wholesale progressive destruction of capital. As a result of this, inflation will come back with vengeance, and ultimately, global fiat money will unravel, causing hyperinflation. We shall see that the decay of capital can be put in a time frame, and the coming doomsday can be pinpointed. This will be done through refining our theory of permanent gold backwardation. The theory of primary gold backwardation will be augmented by the theory of secondary gold backwardation. Endgame in the gold market. We all know that fiat currency is going to fail. Historically, every experiment with it did sooner or later. The fact that the current experiment survived longer than any previous one proves nothing. In addition, the regime of global fiat currency has become the breeder of irredeemable debt. Logic tells us that the construction of such a Babylonian debt tower cannot continue forever. It will collapse, like its biblical forerunner has, and will bury the conceited builders under the rubble. The problem the monetary scientists must confront is to predict when. I have devoted the greater part of my life to the task of studying hyperinflations throughout the ages. For some 6 decades, I was trying to analyze the problem. I have established the New Austrian School of Economics and attracted brilliant students from all over the world and conferred several master's and PhD degrees. Some of these doctoral dissertations written under our program have beaten new paths by using such novel concepts as the gold basis and co-basis. Members of our alumnus contributed important new results to monetary science, for example, proving the important theorem that permanent gold backwardation inevitably brings about hyperinflation in its wake. Personally, I was motivated by my experience of growing up in a family burdened with the memory that the pension of my grandfather, a government engineer, was wiped out in 1926, followed by the pension of my father, a school principal, being wiped out 20 years later in 1946. I felt that I was targeted next. The deprivation caused by this experience left an indelible mark on me. What impressed me most while studying hyperinflations was the fact that virtually all monetary scientists ignored the endgame in the gold markets as the catastrophe of self-destruction of money has been unfolding. This article consists of excerpts from my book of the same title, in which the problem is treated in full. My greatest contribution to monetary science has been the shifting of the focus from the gold price to the gold basis, the spread between the future and the spot price of gold. Typically, it is positive. The gold price seismographically picks up a lot of noise while missing false carding in the gold markets. By contrast, the gold basis is a pristine market indicator filtering out noise while revealing false carding in the gold market. As readers familiar with the card game bridge well know, rules governing endgame are very different from those governing the middle game and the pre-game auction. In the endgame, the knowledge of the distribution of cards yet to be played is all important. Here, false carding come to the fore. Not surprisingly, in the endgame of the hyperinflationary phase, false carding becomes a frequently applied maneuver. For example, a gold mining concern may be selling gold faster or more slowly than justified by its output. Also, central and bullion banks and hedge funds publish fake statistics on their holdings of bullion and on their maturing gold lease contracts. Forward selling and leasing of gold bullion is also a favorite. When a central bank leases its gold to a bullion bank, it assumes the risk that it may never see its leased gold ever again. The latter promptly sells it to Silk Road countries. The former, the central bank, knows this, but it also knows that bank examiners accept paper gold as equivalent to physical thanks to the relaxing of the standard of bank examination, compromising the process of auditing. Since 2000, in my lectures and articles, I have drawn attention to the unique phenomenon of permanent gold backwardation as a foolproof indicator of the progressive scarcity of gold deliverable against maturing futures contracts. The endgame drama features episodes of sporadic backwardation of gold, indicated by the gold basis dipping into negative territory. These episodes, while temporary at first, with the gold basis bouncing back into its normal positive range, reestablishing contango in the gold futures markets, where the price of gold for more distant future delivery is necessarily higher than that for nearby future delivery. The upshot is that the length of sporadic spells of gold backwardation is getting progressively ever longer, making physical gold ever more scarce, severely squeezing short interest. The curious thing is that this is not how it played out during the past 10 years. The purpose of this article is to explain why. Waiting for Godot. People bombard me with the question, how much longer do we have to wait for Godot? Read Hyperinflation. Why has the prognostication for permanent gold backwardation failed to materialize during the past decade? The short answer is that the analysis in terms primary gold backwardation must be augmented through the introduction of the secondary gold backwardation. The title of this caption calls for an explanation. In 1952, Samuel Beckett wrote a play with the title En Attendant Godot that has subsequently become world famous. In his play, the author demonstrates with unforgettable force the pre-conscious visceral form of expectation similar to the Jewish people's waiting for the Messiah or Christendom's waiting for the second coming of Christ. The question arises in view of the instinctive waiting for hyperinflation in the wake of the latter-day miraculous proliferation of money. It is motivated by QTM, quantitative theory of money, a faulty doctrine. The superficial observer misses the individual's effort to shape the future and the fact that to this extent what is happening is caused by teleological forces. The expectation of future always builds on empirical foundations, but exceeds the level of experience. Reasonable monetary policy ought to be able to figure out what consequences follow from government interference. The gold price is getting irrelevant. To recapitulate, research at NASA concluded that the gold price is not per se a reliable indicator of hyperinflation in the making. More reliable is the gold basis and co-basis. The negative gold basis makes physical gold progressively scarcer, paving the way towards permanent gold backwardation. Wholesale withdrawal by sellers offers to sell brings about a situation in which no physical gold is available for purchase at any price denominated in irredeemable currency. Sellers do not see how they can replenish their inventory through ordinary trading of gold futures contracts. In what follows, I shall indicate how I propose to refine the theory of permanent gold backwardation to explain the lag between cause and effect. The mechanism of gold delivery. Strictly speaking, gold futures markets are trading warehousing space for gold, and the gold basis is just the price of that warehousing space. We have to familiarize ourselves with the nitty-gritty of delivering on gold futures contracts. We are, of course, talking about warehousing allocated gold, in which case the warehouse certificate specifies the exact weight, fineness, and the serial number of the gold bar covered. There are well-known risks involved in owning unallocated gold, starting with the potential bankruptcy of the warehouse itself. Even when we limit ourselves to the warehousing of allocated gold, not all gold certificates are created equal. The gold futures exchanges, the largest of which is COMEX in New York, appoint warehouses whose certificates are acceptable in delivery on gold futures contracts. It may come as a surprise to my readers that delivery on gold futures never involves delivery of physical gold directly. It involves delivery of gold certificates. There are 12 gold futures contracts, as many as there are months in the calendar year. However, only half of them are actively traded: February, April, June, August, October, and December. The procedure for taking delivery on a gold futures contract is as follows. Holders of a maturing long contract who intend to take delivery must give notice of their intention on first notice day. At the same time, they must capitalize their account with the exchange 100% zero margin. Holders of short contracts, of course, are also subject to the zero margin rule. In addition, they must deposit with the exchange a gold certificate issued by an exchange-approved warehouse. Now we have come to the crucial point that plays a role in refining our theory of permanent gold backwardation. Two varieties of warehouse certificates are distinguished. 1. Gold certificates on registered gold. 2. Gold certificates of eligible gold. There is no difference between gold covered by these two varieties. The difference is between their acceptability in the delivery process. Certificates on registered gold are acceptable. Certificates on eligible gold are not acceptable. I beg the reader to bear with me while I explain this cumbersome and seemingly superfluous provision that is crucial in understanding secondary gold basis and secondary gold backwardation. Thus, then, there are two markets for gold certificates, one for those on registered gold and another on eligible gold. Recall that it is arbitrage between the spot gold market and futures gold market that is responsible for primary gold backwardation. Similarly, Arbitrage between the market for gold certificates on registered gold and the market for gold certificates on eligible gold is responsible for secondary gold backwardation. The question arises naturally: what motivates market participant to carry an inventory of either variety of gold certificates? The motivation for carrying an inventory of certificates on registered gold is to be first in line for getting the physical gold. Recall that physical gold may be in short supply and may even be unavailable in case of permanent gold backwardation. Not surprisingly, the price of certificates on registered gold is higher than that of certificates on eligible gold, in spite of the fact that exactly the very same physical gold is backing either variety. The market does not directly quote prices, but they can be extrapolated from data released by the exchange, such as the number of certificates of either variety outstanding. The motivation for carrying an inventory of certificates on eligible gold primarily is speculation on the gold price. Gold certificates moving from the registered to the eligible category reflects the opinion of market participants in the firing line how many gold certificates are in existence for every ounce of physical gold. Clearly, at any given time, there is an overissue, just as airlines are known to overbook seats. When it happens, holders of long gold futures contracts who are bumped are typically offered a bribe in the form of a premium on the price of the certificate on registered gold. The premium may move holders of certificates on registered gold to give up their priority, but it is also possible that they do not want to deliver their certificates because they do not see a chance to replace them through the regular trading of gold futures contracts. They may not want to hold the proverbial bag. Secondary gold contango manifests itself by the condition whereby certificates on registered gold command a premium. Secondary backwardation means that the price of certificates on eligible gold goes to a premium. Recall that primary gold backwardation is about the scarcity of spot gold relative to gold futures contracts. Likewise, secondary gold backwardation is about the scarcity of certificates on registered gold relative to those on eligible gold. That, for the stronger reason, means that the scarcity of spot gold relative to gold futures. Thus, secondary gold backwardation implies primary gold backwardation. It indicates the reluctance of the holders of getting gold certificates to put their registered gold into harm's way, to risk that their registered gold will be called. Secondary gold basis, as we have seen, is the difference between the price of gold certificates on registered and eligible gold. I leave it to my students to define secondary gold cobasis and study the interplay between the two. Lest someone think that the emergence of dual gold certificates is due to making arbitrary rules, I point out that it comes about due to the organic development gold futures trading. It is part of the firewall to prevent short interest from engineering a corner. The system of dual gold certificates is the gatekeeper. When the inventory of gold is getting too low in the exchange-approved warehouses, and the long interest is approaching critical mass, the clearinghouse of the exchange shuffles the gold certificates on registered and eligible gold. A short course on the history of the legal position of gold in the U.S. Under this caption, I shall deal with the question why the powers that be allowed gold futures trading to go ahead in the U.S. in 1975. During the period 1933 to 1975, the ownership and trading of gold was criminalized in the United States pursuant to F.D. Roosevelt's suspension of the monetary clauses of the Constitution. Of course, this was trampling on the rights of the citizens and an abominable restriction of freedom. Change occurred in 1975 when the ban was lifted and futures trading in gold was allowed. What is in the background of this change of heart? First of all, it must be emphasized that as the executive order made it very clear, the easing was on a 24-hour basis. Since the writ of the U.S. government stops at the water, In foreign countries, gold markets continued to trade gold, invariably quoting premium dollar prices, indicating dollar debasement. This was embarrassing. At first, there was no ban on Americans to own and to trade gold in the overseas markets. Such a ban was imposed later, during the Eisenhower administration. Mainstream economists, all staunch supporters of debt-based fiat money, came to the conclusion that the system leaked like a sieve and suggested that the way to stop leakage is to allow gold futures trading. They were hoping that the availability of paper gold suppressed the appetite for real gold. They were inspired by a metaphor of Keynes. People want the moon, but of course they cannot have the moon. So the government must convince them that blue cheese is just as good and order the central bank to produce it galore to make them happy. So why did the U.S. government legalize gold trading? Well, because it saw the proliferation of paper gold an effective, even the only, way to deflect the inevitable hyperinflation. Such shabby Keynesian musings were used to justify the trampling of the American Constitution. Secondary gold basis measuring capital destruction. We have seen that the primary gold basis is the price of warehousing space for gold. It measures the ratio of paper and physical gold in existence. What does the secondary gold basis measure? Secondary gold basis measures the ratio of gold certificates on registered and eligible gold in existence. In other words, it indicates how many ounces of gold in certificates have been issued on every ounce of physical gold. When this number reaches the critical mass, chain reaction ensues. People start scrambling to get out of paper gold and into physical gold. We shall also describe the secondary gold basis as the price of insurance against default on paper gold. In this view, the secondary gold basis is a measure of decay in the capital structure of the world. Recall that gold is the only form of capital that is no subject to decay or destruction, while all other forms of capital, whether physical or whether financial, are. To recapitulate, our refined theory of permanent gold backwardation scrutinizes the endgame in the gold markets. It focuses on the jockeying of people to get into position where they have control over the only indestructible form of capital, gold. The new element is the importance of the endgame in the gold market that has thus far been ignored. I submit that once we make it part of the theory of permanent gold backwardation, we shall have a handle on the problem of timing hyperinflation. The only indestructible form of capital, gold. He wasn't talking about anything else other than gold. And it's amazing to see how much is written about and discussed regarding gold and how governments view it, how people trade it, how it moves around the world. It really is the foundation, the core, the magma that is economics. It all is based on that. No matter what people believe or want to pretend, when Germany ordered their gold back to the Bundesbank, when you see the news and how gold is shuffled about, placed into vaults, when governments are purchasing it, whether it's China, Russia, India, Thailand, Vietnam, Germany, France, England, Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Norway, Sweden, or Finland, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what the minuscule and trivial opinions are of the naysayers and those who try to discount gold. It really doesn't matter at all, because ultimately gold will take care of itself. The world economy will always turn back to it. It's in our genetics. It's timeless. It's since the beginning of time and all of history. Even the crypto revolution that we believe we're experiencing, or some people believe that we are experiencing now, much of that wealth, I truly believe, will find itself locked away and shifted towards gold at some point. There will be people who make a tremendous amount of wealth and will transfer it into the indestructible capital that is gold. It's just the way it's worked since the beginning of time and the way it will continue to work. Thanks for viewing the Junior Small P channel. Thanks for being part of another broadcast of speeches and lectures. I will place this in that playlist where you will find other lectures and speeches and writings from various authors. I appreciate you guys stopping by and spending the time to listen to this piece. All right, have a good day. Keep stacking. And remember, gold, it really is the only indestructible form of capital.